The sun was just starting to rise over London when Prince William opened his eyes. Today was not like any other day. Today, his father would become King Charles III. William looked at the clock on his bedside table. It was only 6 in the morning, but he could not sleep anymore. He got out of bed and walked to the big window in his bedroom at Kensington Palace. Outside, he could see people already walking on the streets. Some were carrying small flags. Others had cameras. Everyone seemed excited. William felt his heart beating fast in his chest. "Today is the day," he said quietly to himself. William walked to his closet and looked at his special uniform hanging there. It was dark blue with gold buttons and red details. The uniform was heavy and important looking. He had worn uniforms like this before, but today felt different. Today, when he put on this uniform, his father would be crowned King of England. His hands were shaking a little as he took the uniform off the hanger. William had been preparing for this day his whole life, but now that it was here, he felt nervous. What if something went wrong? What if he made a mistake? What if the children did not behave well? He started to put on the uniform, button by button. Each button felt heavy in his fingers. The first button, then the second, then the third. William looked at himself in the mirror. He looked like a prince, but inside, he still felt like a son who was worried about his father. Just then, Kate walked into the room. She was wearing a beautiful long dress that was cream-colored with gold details. Her hair was done perfectly, and she had a small tiara on her head. But what William noticed most was her smile. Kate always knew how to make him feel better. "You look very handsome," Kate said as she walked over to him. "I am nervous," William told his wife honestly. Kate put her hand on his shoulder. "Your father will be so proud today. And you will be perfect, just like you always are." William felt a little better. Kate always knew the right thing to say. She helped him fix his collar and made sure his uniform looked perfect. "How are the children?" William asked. "George is trying to tie his own tie," Kate laughed. "Charlotte is spinning around in her dress and will not stop. And Louis, well, Louis is being Louis." William smiled for the first time that morning. His children always made him happy, even when he was worried. Down the hall, they could hear voices and footsteps. The palace was waking up. Servants were moving around, getting everything ready. In a few hours, the whole world would be watching their family. Kate walked to the window and looked outside. "Look," she said, "more people are coming." William joined her at the window. The streets were filling up with people. Some had sleeping bags, which meant they had been waiting all night. Others were just arriving. Everyone wanted to see the coronation day. "They are all here for Papa," William said, using the name he still called his father sometimes. "They are here for all of us," Kate replied. "For our whole family." William took Kate's hand. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as I can be," Kate answered. "Are you?" William looked at his reflection in the window. He saw a man in a royal uniform, but also a son, a husband, and a father. Today would change everything for their family. "Yes," he said finally, "I think I am ready." Outside, London was waking up to a very special day. Inside the palace, Prince William and Kate were getting ready to be part of history. After William and Kate finished getting dressed, they walked down the long hallway to find their children. The palace felt different today. Even the walls seemed to know something special was happening. They found Prince George in his bedroom, standing in front of a big mirror. He was trying to fix his tie, but it looked all wrong. The 9-year-old boy had a serious look on his face. He wanted to look perfect for his grandfather's big day. "Let me help you with that," William said as he walked into the room. George looked up at his father. "Papa, I want to look good today. Grandpapa is becoming the king." William felt his heart warm up. His son understood how important this day was. William knelt down and helped George with his tie. "You already look very good," he told his son. "Grandpapa will be so proud of you." Next, they went to find Princess Charlotte. They could hear her laughing before they even reached her room. When they opened the door, they saw 7-year-old Charlotte spinning around and around in her beautiful pink dress. "Look at me," Charlotte said as she spun. "I am like a princess in a fairy tale." Kate laughed. "You are a princess, my darling, and you look absolutely beautiful." Charlotte stopped spinning and looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a small tiara that sparkled in the morning light. "Will Grandpapa wear a crown bigger than this?" she asked. "Much bigger," William answered, "and much heavier too." Charlotte's eyes got wide. "Will it hurt his head?" "Maybe a little," Kate said with a smile, "but Grandpapa is very strong." Then they heard a loud noise from Prince Louis's room. It sounded like something had fallen down. They all hurried to see what had happened. 5-year-old Louis was standing on his bed, trying to reach something on a high shelf. His formal clothes were a little messy, and his hair was sticking up in different directions. "Louis, what are you doing?" Kate asked. "I want my toy soldier," Louis said. "The one with the red hat. He should come to see Grandpapa become king too." William and Kate looked at each other and smiled. Louis always had his own special way of thinking about things. "Come down from there," William said as he helped Louis off the bed. "We need to make you look nice for the big day." Kate fixed Louis's hair and clothes while William explained to all 3 children what would happen today. "We are going to a very old church called Westminster Abbey," William said. "There will be many people there. Everyone will be watching Grandpapa." "Will there be singing?" Charlotte asked. "Yes, lots of singing," Kate answered. "Will it be long?" George wanted to know. "Yes, it will take some time," William said. "But it is very important. One day, this will happen for me too. And one day, George, it will happen for you." George looked serious again. He was starting to understand that being a prince meant he had big responsibilities. "Will people take pictures of us?" Louis asked. "Many pictures," Kate said. "So we all need to remember to smile and wave." Louis practiced waving. He waved his hand so fast it looked funny. Charlotte giggled and started waving too. Even George smiled and gave a small wave. The family stood together in the big drawing room. On the walls were pictures of kings and queens from long ago. William looked at those pictures and thought about how his children would one day have their pictures on these walls too. "Are we ready?" Kate asked. William looked at his beautiful wife and his 3 wonderful children. They all looked perfect. More importantly, they looked happy. "Yes," William said. "Our family is ready to make history." The black cars were waiting outside Kensington Palace. William could see crowds of people standing behind the barriers. They were holding flags and cameras. Some people had been waiting since early morning just to see the royal family. "Wow, look at all those people," Charlotte said as she looked out the window. William helped each child get into the big royal car. The car had special thick windows and comfortable seats. George sat up straight like a proper prince. Charlotte kept waving at people even though they were still inside the palace gates. Louis was trying to count all the flags he could see. Kate sat next to William and took his hand. "The children are being so good," she whispered to him. "They know today is special," William replied. The car started to move slowly through the palace gates. As soon as people saw them, everyone started cheering and waving. The noise was so loud they could hear it inside the car. "Papa, why are they so happy?" Louis asked. "Because today is a celebration," William explained. "Everyone in the country is celebrating with us." The car moved through London's old streets. William pointed out different buildings to his children. "That is where your great-grandmother used to live," he said as they passed Buckingham Palace. "And that is where I went to school when I was young." Charlotte pressed her face against the window. "There are so many people everywhere." It was true. Every street corner had people waiting. Some were old, some were young. Some had children sitting on their shoulders. Everyone was smiling and waving. The journey to Westminster Abbey usually took 15 minutes, but today it took much longer. The car had to move slowly so people could see the royal family. William and Kate waved back at everyone. The children copied their parents and waved too. "I can see the church," George said suddenly. Everyone looked ahead. The tall towers of Westminster Abbey were getting closer and closer. Westminster Abbey looked like something from a fairy tale. The old stone building had flags hanging from it. Hundreds of people in uniforms were standing outside. Television cameras were everywhere. "It is so big," Charlotte said with wide eyes. The car stopped in front of the Abbey. William could hear the church bells ringing. They were playing a special tune for the coronation. The sound filled the air and made everything feel magical. William got out of the car first. Immediately, he heard thousands of people cheering. The sound was so loud it almost made his ears hurt, but it was a happy sound. Everyone was excited and joyful. William turned to help Kate out of the car. She looked beautiful and calm, even though he knew she was nervous too. Kate smiled and waved at the crowd. Her wave was perfect. Not too fast, not too slow. Then came the children. George stepped out and stood tall like his father had taught him. Charlotte got out and immediately smiled at all the cameras. Louis came out last and looked around with his mouth open. He had never seen so many people in one place. "Stay close to Mama and Papa," Kate told the children quietly. Palace helpers came to guide them toward the Abbey entrance. William could see other members of his family arriving too. Everyone was dressed in their best clothes. Everyone looked serious but happy. The Abbey doors were huge and made of old wood. As they got closer, William could hear music coming from inside. It was organ music that sounded grand and important. "Are you ready?" William asked his family. "Ready," all three children said together. Kate squeezed William's hand. "Let's go make your father proud." Inside the Abbey entrance, it felt cooler and quieter. The thick stone walls kept out most of the noise from outside. William could see his family members waiting for them. Princess Anne, William's aunt, came over to greet them. She gave Kate a warm hug and smiled at the children. "You all look wonderful," Princess Anne said. "Charles will be so happy to see you looking so smart." Uncle Edward was there too with his family. The children were excited to see their cousins. Charlotte ran over to her cousin and said, "Look at my dress." "Do you like it?" "It's beautiful," her cousin replied. Louis found his favorite uncle and gave him a big hug. Even when he was dressed up for important events, Louis was still just a 5-year-old boy who loved his family. George stayed close to his parents. He was old enough to understand that many people were watching him. He wanted to behave perfectly for his grandfather's special day. Then King Charles and Queen Camilla appeared. They were wearing their coronation robes, which were made of beautiful red material with gold details. King Charles looked very royal, but when he saw his son's family, his face lit up with joy. "My dear family," Charles said with a big smile. William felt tears in his eyes as he hugged his father. "We are so proud of you, Papa," he said quietly. Charles knelt down to talk to his grandchildren. "You all look so grown up and beautiful," he told them. Charlotte curtsied like her mother had taught her. George bowed his head politely. Louis just smiled and said, "Grandpapa, your clothes are very fancy." Everyone laughed. Even on such a formal day, Louis could make people smile. Kate curtsied to King Charles and Queen Camilla. "Thank you for including us in this special day," she said. "Your family," Charles replied. "This day would not be complete without you." It was time to go into the main part of the Abbey. William had been inside Westminster Abbey many times before, but today it looked different. There were flowers everywhere. Special lights made everything glow. 2,000 people were sitting in rows, all waiting for the ceremony to begin. William and Kate walked slowly down the long aisle. Their children followed behind them. George walked first because he was the oldest. Charlotte came next, and Louis walked at the end. Everyone was watching them. But the children remembered what their parents had taught them. Walk slowly, keep your head up, and smile. The abbey was full of important people from all over the world. There were presidents and prime ministers. There were other kings and queens from different countries. Everyone had come to see Charles become king. The family reached their special seats at the front of the abbey. These seats had been chosen carefully so they could see everything that would happen during the ceremony. Kate helped Louis sit down properly. "Remember to sit still and wash quietly," she whispered to him. George sat between his parents. From his seat, he could see the special chair where his grandfather would sit. It was called the Coronation chair, and it was very old. Kings and queens had been crowned in that chair for hundreds of years. Charlotte sat next to her mother and looked around at all the beautiful decorations. The abbey had stained glass windows that made colorful patterns on the walls. The ceiling was so high it seemed to touch the sky. "It's like a palace for God," Charlotte whispered to Kate. William looked around and felt the weight of history. His own wedding to Kate had happened in this same abbey. Now his children were here watching their grandfather become king. One day, George would sit in that special chair too. The organ music got louder. Everyone in the abbey became quiet. The ceremony was about to begin. The ceremony started with beautiful singing. A choir of children sang songs that were hundreds of years old. Their voices filled the huge abbey and made everyone feel peaceful and happy. William watched as his father walked slowly to the front of the abbey. Charles looked serious but calm. He had been preparing for this moment his whole life, just like William was preparing for his own future as king. The Archbishop of Canterbury, who was the most important religious leader in England, stood waiting for Charles. He would be the one to place the crown on Charles's head. "Look, that man has a very big hat," Louis whispered to Kate. Kate smiled and nodded. The Archbishop was wearing special ceremonial clothes that were different from what people usually wore in church. During the ceremony, Charles had to make promises to take care of the people of England and all the countries in the Commonwealth. He promised to be fair and just. He promised to protect everyone, rich and poor. William felt proud as he listened to his father make these important promises. These were the same promises William would make one day when he became king. Charlotte was fascinated by all the beautiful objects that were brought out during the ceremony. There was a golden orb that represented the world. There was a scepter with a big diamond on top. There were rings and bracelets that had belonged to kings and queens from long ago. "Why does Grandpapa need so many special things?" Charlotte asked quietly. "Each thing has a special meaning," Kate explained in a whisper. "They help show that he is the king." The most important moment came when the Archbishop lifted the heavy golden crown. This was Street Edward's crown, and it weighed almost 5 pounds. The crown was covered in jewels that sparkled in the abbey's lights. William held his breath as the crown was slowly placed on his father's head. At that moment, Charles officially became King Charles III. "God save the king!" Everyone in the abbey shouted together. William felt tears in his eyes. His father was now the king, and William was now one step closer to being king himself. As William watched his father wearing the crown, he thought about all the times Charles had taught him about being royal. When William was a little boy, his father had told him stories about duty and service. Charles had explained that being a prince was not just about living in palaces and wearing nice clothes. It was about helping people and making the country better. "A good king puts his people first," Charles had always said. "He thinks about what is best for everyone, not just himself." Now William was watching his father become that king. He felt so proud he thought his heart might burst. Kate noticed that William's eyes were full of tears. She reached over and took his hand. She understood how much this moment meant to him. Kate was proud of Charles too. He had always been kind to her and had welcomed her into the royal family with love. George was watching everything very carefully. He was old enough to understand that one day he would be sitting in that special chair too. The thought was both exciting and scary, But seeing his grandfather look so calm and strong made George feel brave. "Will I have to wear that heavy crown one day?" George whispered to his father. "One day, yes," William whispered back, "but not for many, many years. And when that day comes, you will be ready." Princess Charlotte was amazed by how beautiful everything looked. The crown sparkled like stars. The ceremonial clothes were the most beautiful things she had ever seen. She decided that when she grew up, she wanted to help make ceremonies like this one. Prince Louis was trying very hard to sit still and be good. Sometimes he whispered questions to his mother. Sometimes he just watched with wide eyes. He did not understand everything that was happening, but he knew it was very important. When the ceremony reached its most sacred moments, the abbey became completely quiet. Everyone was thinking about the importance of what they were seeing. A new king was being crowned. History was being made. William looked at his children and thought about their future. George would be king one day. Charlotte would be a working royal, helping her brother. Louis would find his own special role in the family. Today was not just about Charles becoming king. It was about the whole family's future. The ceremony was ending. King Charles, now wearing his crown, stood up from the coronation chair. He looked different now, more royal, more official. But when he smiled at his family, he was still the same man who told bedtime stories to his grandchildren. It was time for everyone to leave the abbey. The new king would go first, followed by the most important family members. William and his family would walk out together, showing the world that the royal family was united and strong. As they stood up to leave, William felt the weight of what had just happened. His father was now King Charles III. William was now the heir to the throne in a new reign. Everything had changed, but in many ways, everything was still the same. They were still a family who loved each other. The family walked slowly out of the abbey. Outside, the cheering was even louder than before. Thousands of people were celebrating in the streets. Church bells were ringing all over London. It was a sound of joy and hope. "Wave to everyone," Kate reminded the children as they walked toward their car. All three children waved enthusiastically. George waved like a proper prince. Charlotte blew kisses to the crowd. Louis waved with both hands because he was so excited. The family got back into their royal car for the journey to Buckingham Palace. There would be more celebrations there. They would go out on the famous balcony where millions of people around the world would see them on television. As the car drove through London's streets, William looked at his family. Kate was holding Louis on her lap while he looked out the window. Charlotte was telling George about all the pretty things she had seen in the abbey. Everyone was happy and excited. "How do you feel, Papa?" George asked his father. William thought for a moment. "I feel proud of Grandpapa. I feel grateful for our family. And I feel ready for whatever comes next." Kate smiled at her husband. "We all feel that way," she said. The car reached Buckingham Palace, where more crowds were waiting. The coronation of King Charles III was complete, but the celebration was just beginning. William and his family were ready to step into their new roles in this new era of the monarchy. As they prepared to face the crowds on the balcony, William knew that today had changed everything. But with Kate by his side and his children healthy and happy, he felt ready for whatever the future would bring. The crown might be heavy, but love made everything lighter.